the prize of a galactic hunter. The slaver ship drifted above Earth like a shadow that did not belong to the sky. Its hull gleamed with alien alloys, etched with the sigils of the Exorcon Empire, symbols of conquest and ownership. Inside, Zakith leaned forward his command chair, predatory eyes fixed on a glowing blue sphere below. He had hunted across half the galaxy. He had broken the wills of predators with claws like swords, of sentients who could bend light into illusions. Yet here, on the edge of nowhere, rumors spoke of something new. Creatures that walked upright, fragile-looking, almost comical in their soft skin and bare faces. Humans, the traders had called them. To Zakith, they sounded like easy prey. Target located, one of his scouts hissed, mandibles clicking. Unarmed. Alone. On the view screen, a man walked along a rural trail at dusk. Zakith's head tilted. The creature was tall for its frame, broad in the shoulders, but otherwise unremarkable. No armor, no fangs, no claws. Just 2 legs and a steady stride. Pathetic, Zakith murmured. This would make a fine trophy. The ship descended silently, cloaking fields shimmering. With a gesture, Zakith released a capture drone. A crackling net of energy fell from the sky, enveloping the human. The man, Ethan Reyes, did not fall quietly. The instant the net hit, he screamed, not in fear but in raw defiance. He tore at the glowing strands, muscles straining, skin blistering. The drone shocked him once, twice, a dozen times, yet Ethan still fought. He grabbed a rock, hurled it with perfect aim, and shattered one of the drone's lenses. Sparks spat into the air as the machine faltered. On the bridge, Zakith leaned forward, intrigued. Spirited little thing, isn't it? 2 more drones descended, slamming him with pulse shocks until at last he collapsed, body twitching. Even then, his eyes locked on the sky with a look that was not surrender, but promise. When they dragged him aboard, bloodied but breathing, Ethan spat at his captor's feet. His wrists were bound with steel-like manacles, yet he stood tall. Curious, Zakith muttered, circling him. Most creatures cower. You glare. Ethan said nothing. He didn't understand their language, but his silence carried weight. Later, when they offered him food, he pushed it away. When they shoved him into his containment cell, he refused to sit. The other creatures in neighboring cages, scaled, feathered, and furred, watched with wide, frightened eyes. They had learned obedience. This new arrival radiated something else entirely. On the observation deck, Zakith laughed. This one will amuse me for weeks. They call his species human. Let us see how long it takes to break. But when he turned away, he did not see Ethan's lips curl into the faintest of grim smiles, nor hear the low words spoken in a language no alien could understand. You can cage me. You can beat me. But you'll never own me. The cage doesn't hold. The cage was meant to be paradise. Ethan blinked at the artificial sunlight spilling across his enclosure. The walls were smooth metal disguised with painted landscapes. A brook of recycled water trickled through rocks that had never seen a mountain. Platters of colorful food, fruits and meats from worlds he couldn't name, appeared at set intervals, steaming and perfect. It was supposed to be irresistible. A gilded trap. Ethan paced the enclosure like a wolf in a zoo. He didn't eat. He didn't sit. His mind cataloged everything. The faint hum where the energy barrier met the floor, the rhythm of guards changing shifts, the panel where food trays slid through. The other captives whispered. In neighboring cells, furred quadrupeds and scaled bipeds watched him with uneasy awe. They had long since bent their heads and accepted collars. This new creature did not. When Zakith arrived, the air shifted. The alien's massive frame gleamed with armored plates, his mandibles spread in what passed for a grin. He pressed a claw to the barrier, observing Ethan as if he were a curious insect. Comfort, Zakith said in his rasping tongue, words translated through the enclosure speakers. Food, warmth, all things lesser species crave. You will take them. You will perform. Ethan crossed his arms and stared back. His jaw was tight, his eyes burning with the same fire as the day he'd been captured. Zakith tapped the control. The barrier shimmered with a sudden jolt of current. Ethan's body seized in pain, but he remained standing. His teeth gritted, and when the crackling energy faded, he spat blood on the floor. The guards hissed in surprise. Even they had never seen defiance last this long. Stubborn, Zakith mused, voice dripping with amusement. But everything learns to obey. The next cycle, Zakith brought guests, fellow nobles of the empire. They gathered before Ethan's cage, jeweled eyes gleaming with curiosity. Zakith gestured proudly. Observe the new prize. A human. Resist command. Spirited, but not for long. He barked an order at Ethan, demanding a display of submission. Kneel, lower his head, show obedience. Ethan instead walked forward until his face nearly touched the shimmering barrier. Then, without hesitation, he raised his hand and gave them a gesture whose meaning needed no translation. The nobles recoiled. Murmurs filled the hall. Zakith's amusement twisted into rage. With a snarl, he unleashed a burst of current. Ethan collapsed, twitching, skin blistering. Yet even as he lay gasping, a ragged laugh broke from his throat. The sound unsettled everyone. That night, Zakith left in frustration. But not everyone in the cages slept. A neighboring prisoner, a reptilian scholar named Sirik, slid close to the barrier. His scaled face pressed near, his eyes curious. In a halting mix of gestures and words, he tried to communicate. Ethan responded with fragments of English, then mimicked Sirik's words until patterns emerged. Slowly, painfully, they began to understand each other. Sirik whispered in awe, "You do not yield." "What?" Ethan's cracked lips curved into a faint smile. "Because cages don't hold forever." And for the first time since their capture, hope stirred among the prisoners. The pet that bites back. The alarm started with a single shriek of metal. Ethan stood over the unconscious guard, pulse hammering in his ears. The alien's weapon, a rod humming with electrical energy, felt heavy in his grip, but not unfamiliar. Weapons were weapons. He could learn. The plan had been simple. Feign weakness. Let the guards grow lazy. And when one stepped too close, strike like a cornered wolf. It had worked. Across the cell blocks, the other captives stirred at the sound of the breach. Some cowered and used to anything but submission. Others pressed close to their barriers, eyes wide with something dangerously close to hope. "Move!" Ethan barked, even though few understood his tone. His tone carried command, urgency. He smashed the rod against the control panel, sparks flying. The energy barriers flickered. One by one, cages winked open. Chaos erupted. Creatures of every shape burst free. Horned quadrupeds trampling guards, feathered beings taking to the air, reptilian prisoners slashing with claws. For the first time in cycles, the cages were not quiet. They were a battlefield. Ethan fought with brutal efficiency. He didn't waste movements. Every strike was meant to disable, to kill if needed. The guards were stronger, but they weren't used to prey that fought back. Still, they outnumbered him. When reinforcements poured in, the uprising faltered. Blaster fire cut down prisoners. Energy nets snapped shut around rebels. Ethan himself was clubbed in the ribs, dragged down beneath armored claws. But the damage was done. Pinned to the ground, blood running down his face, Ethan laughed. The sound was raw, feral, a human refusing to surrender, even in chains. The guards hesitated, unsettled. No prisoner had ever laughed under capture. Dragged before Zakith, Ethan was thrown onto the deck of a grand hall, shackled and bruised but still alive. Nobles had gathered, their jeweled eyes burning with outrage. Murmurs hissed around the chamber. "This creature defies order. It must be destroyed." "Kill it," one noble screeched. "Dissect it," demanded another. Zakith raised a clawed hand for silence. His pride burned hotter than their outrage. "No, this one will not die so easily. He will learn, and all of you will see him bow." Ethan raised his head, blood staining his teeth. In broken, halting galactic speech, he forced the words out. "You think human pet." His voice cracked, but his gaze locked onto theirs with unshakable fury. "No pet. Human wolf. Wolves bite." The nobles recoiled. Unease rippled through the chamber. Zakith snarled, but the seed had been planted. Even among the Empire's elite, doubt whispered. Returned to his cell, battered but breathing, Ethan pressed against the barrier to meet Sirik's gaze. The reptilian's eyes gleamed with awe. "You should be dead," Sirik whispered. "Not today," Ethan rasped. His grin was savage despite the bruises. "And tomorrow? Tomorrow we hunt." In the silence that followed, The prisoners realized something profound. The human was not just surviving. He was planning. Wolves among the stars. The uprising began at dawn cycle. Ethan moved like a man who had been preparing for this moment since the first day in chains. Every detail he'd memorized, the patrol routes, the weaknesses in the barriers, the rhythm of the guards, snapped together into a single plan. The first blow was quiet. A guard slumped to the floor, throat crushed by a length of scavenged pipe. The second was louder, an energy barrier blown apart by overloading the feed node with stolen parts. Then the alarm screamed, echoing across the prison decks. This time, it wasn't chaos. It was war. Ethan led the charge, weapon in hand, voice raw as he barked orders. Sirik and a band of freed captives followed, striking with a coordination that shocked even themselves. They weren't soldiers, but under Ethan's guidance, they fought like a pack. The guard expected frightened animals. What they faced instead were wolves. Feathered flyers swooped from above, dropping scavenged metal shards like daggers. Massive quadrupeds smashed through armored doors. Ethan himself fought with a fury that bordered on madness, turning every stolen weapon into a tool of destruction. Zaketh stormed into the fray, towering above the carnage. His mandibles spread in rage. "Enough!" he roared, his voice carrying through the chamber. "You are mine, human. You will kneel." The prisoners faltered, fear flashing in their eyes. But Ethan only stepped forward, bloodied and bruised, facing the alien lord without hesitation. "I told you," he growled, raising his stolen blade. "Humans don't kneel." The duel was brutal. Zaketh's armored limbs struck like hammers, but Ethan slipped between them, countering with speed and precision. Each hit rattled his bones, but he kept moving, kept striking. The fight was not fair, but then neither was survival. At last, Zaketh lunged, claws outstretched. Ethan drove the blade up under his plated chest with every ounce of strength left in him. The alien staggered, mandibles snapping in shock. "You are nothing," Zaketh hissed. Ethan leaned close, voice low and steady. "We're animals, sure, but we're the kind that hunts gods." With a final shove, the alien lord collapsed. The chamber fell silent. Guards hesitated, the chain of command shattered. Prisoners stared at Ethan, bloodied, unbroken, victorious. And in that silence, the balance of power shifted. By the time the escape ships launched, the story was already spreading. Whispers carried through the slave routes, through black markets and border stations. A human had killed an Exor Lord. A human had turned cages into battlefields. Ethan stood at the viewport of the stolen transport, stars streaking past. Sarah joined him, eyes gleaming. "They will never forget this," the reptilians said. "Good," Ethan replied. His voice was tired but resolute. "Let them remember. Humans don't make good pets." He glanced at the freed prisoners behind him, their hope burning brighter than any star. "We make better hunters." And with that, the wolves of Earth had stepped into the galaxy.